Merry Christmas, explorers! I'm David, that's Wesley, and this is the Trailcast.
The show that gets so far off track, you'll have to stick around to see just where we end up.
Alright, Wesley, come on with me. Come on. Whip, stir, whip, stir, whip, 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 stir.
Yeah, well, you got that line completely wrong, but I can't blame you because you've probably only watched this movie once. That's right, today we are talking about Tar a Christmas special.
Yeah, I realize that now. Actually, I realized that when I started it. I started on a whip when I should have started on a stir.
Yeah, it's stir, whip, stir, whip.
Yeah.
I did say that obviously, you've probably, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you've seen this movie very few times. I'm assuming probably just the one time that we had to watch it for
Mm-hmm.
this pod. Um, and can't fault you for not remembering that. The only reason I really, really have it ingrained in my memory is because all day I've been listening to Christmas about it and all that stuff, and that part of it just keeps getting played over and over again. So it's kind of ingrained in my memory, at least that little bit.
Okay, so let's for those of you who have not watched the holiday special, which I'm assuming the majority of people listening to this haven't. Well, why
Go
don't
watch our recap.
yeah, let's explain a little bit about what exactly the holiday special is first. So, when did it come out? It came out in '78.
A year after,
Yeah,
about a year after A New Hope, kind of in between A New Hope and
yeah. So it came out in 1978, and it was a like TV special that had like a
it was not. Go ahead.
and they framed it as a variety show.
Mhm. Which, from what I've heard, variety shows were out of date at this point in time. Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
like they weren't the in thing. So it's kind of weird that that's the case that they ended up doing that way. But to clarify, George Lucas uh, okayed this project. He did not write or direct this. Um, Now, from what I've heard, and maybe you have more research on this and you might know something different, but from what I've heard, he did give a base treatment for what he was wanting done with this movie. So he gave like a base outline for the movie, which was essentially just Wookiee's Wookiee sitcom, basically, like following
Mm-hmm.
Chewbacca's family. That was the gist of it. And from there, somehow we got like four uh four music specials and a suggestive
That
hollow
that that
mind
very
thingy.
that very uncomfortable VR thing. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and a circus. So I mean, all in all, what a train wreck. But
the
it definitely
that
was
that
something
uh
else.
that 10-minute animated thing in the middle of it was probably the best part of the whole thing.
Oh, hands down, that was good. Okay, that was mostly good. It was funny though. Me and Sarah were laughing at it. Because I think I paused it right at this moment to say something. But right when Han is looking up and he has a real, real long face, and he's like, "Oh, what happened?" That was like, what did they do to Han Solo? But other than that, the animation pretty good. It worked pretty well. I didn't understand the like, this is Lumpy, which is watching this, and it's a cartoon show in the Star Wars universe. For some reason, but it talks about the rebels.
Okay. So yeah, why would you make a what? Why would there be a show on like a public network, presumably, about rebels trying to overthrow the government, like,
Exactly.
and presenting them as the good guys, like.
Mhm.
I mean,
The show really doesn't make sense
no,
in
it
the
doesn't.
universe, at least.
No. Well, the whole special doesn't make sense in the Star Wars universe.
Well, I don't know who started off directing it. Um, if I saw the name, I might know. So if I, if we have that in Trailcast trivia, which are we doing today?
We are not doing Trailcast trivia, so we should
Oh,
probably go ahead and just
thank
do that
God.
because we did not introduce the show at all today. But it's December. We're just kind of taking it easy. We're just going to be talking about several movies and stuff through this month, and we're just taking it easy. No Trailcast trivia, no Trailcast news. Just uh, talking about movies, and we'll probably do a couple what's new views, but that's about it. So if you want just laid back conversation, next couple weeks are gonna be exactly what you're looking for.
Yep. And and yeah, we'll be hitting the ground running come New Year. But for now, it's yeah, gonna be very laid back. Okay, so let me find real quick. So what's his face, whoever it is, um, Steve Binder is the one who started, or not started, who finished it. I don't remember. This is David Akumba is a director on there. That might be who's credited with the first part of directing the first half of the movie. Not the first half, but the first things they. Um, but I mean, like, it definitely is one of those things that uh, it's all over the place. It doesn't make any sense. Um, like halfway through the movie, you realize, oh yeah, this is about Chewie coming home for Life Day. You
Hmm.
know, because you only somewhat have the possibility of realizing that because half of the people watching this probably have their brains melted out their ear at this point in time. That's kind of how I felt. My speech was literally stuttering halfway through this movie. I couldn't form coherent thoughts because I my brain was gone.
And what like so what we referenced in the intro and what you said you saw you heard a lot of people referencing like some of the okay so like there's a bunch of random musical acts, but then the random cooking show.
Yeah, like what? And you can't. It's not even like a real recipe that you could maybe swap. The thing is, and the sad thing is, what's that guy's name? He's one of the guys in the Carol Burnett show. Um, I could probably find him up pretty quickly here. Let's see. Harvey Korman,
Mm.
a comedian, a big comedian. I mean, he was on the Carol Burnett show. He's in a lot of other things. I think probably I've only known him really from the Carol Burnett show, but a big '70s, '60s, '70s star, whatever. And they bring him in, and he does essentially does three the movie. The one with the baking where he plays a woman, which I don't know if you did, but I watched the pitch meeting on the Star Wars Christmas special.
Oh yeah.
And when he was pitching that idea, he was like, "Yeah, so we'll have this comedy sketch, and we'll have this guy dressed up as a woman." And then he's like, "Okay, cool. Well, then what's gonna be the comedy aspect of it?" And he's like, "No, that's the whole joke." And it's like, yeah, that really is the whole joke that they try to do in this. A man is dressed up as a woman. Like that was the whole thing. I think this guy, I think Harvey Korman is a really funny guy. If you watch anything from the them are great. He's a great comedian. Uh, this was nowhere near. This was his worst work, hands down. It is not funny. It all fell flat. It all was cringy. It was awful.
I don't think it was really his fault though. It was just this whole this whole thing as a whole is just like I I don't know. Like
Well, okay, so I had never really seen the Chris. I'd never seen the Christmas special. I'd never seen much from it. I was not expecting to have what felt like a 20-minute segment. I didn't want a Wookiee sitcom. which is basically what we got in the first. I think it was only 10 minutes, but that thing felt, and it's all pointless.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, they could have taken that exact same plot and done like a much better version of it. Like,
Mhm.
at least give us subtitles so we know what they're talking about.
I mean, like, and in all honesty, like, do you have to be like, yeah, they're speaking Wookiee. That's all we need to know. Like, come up with something, you know, aspects of it that you could tell. Okay, I understand kind of what's going on, but like when you think you know what's going on, you don't know what's going on. Like the most I remember I got out of it was, "Hey, Lumpy, come do the dishes." I don't want to. Come do the dishes. I don't want. Come do the dish, and that was about it.
Mm,
Whole thing. And I think Grandpa got irritated with him at one point. I don't really know. But at one point, he goes out and walks on a railing, and then later on in the movie, they show that that's the weakest railing in the world.
yeah. Also, can we talk about the fact, like, I know this is not canon, so it really doesn't matter. But so Chewie's dad is a white Wookiee. Now, is he
Mm-hmm.
always white, or do Wookiees' hair turn white when they get old?
How old is Itchy? Itchy's his name.
Is it? Yeah.
Um, how old is he then? Because the new trilogy, he is like 200 years old or so.
Mm. Yeah. So
So it's
how?
like, how old do you have to be to get white? That is true. That is an interesting thought. I don't think that they were thinking about it, and I don't think we have to think too hard about it either, because I think we can all agree to bury this deep
I
into my mind, and I hate that.
I understand why George Lucas, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher tried to bury this as deep as possible.
Uh, did you hear the thing where Carrie Fisher was talking about how like she has a copy of it that she got from George for doing some voiceovers with like some of the commentaries on some of the discs. Um and she has it and she says she'll play it at parties when she wants people to leave.
Oh gosh. And then, so okay, I knew what I was getting myself into as soon as the um like after that first scene and it started the narration. I'm like, oh gosh.
Oh, I do want to mention this because this is obviously something that happens in the first couple minutes. So when they're listing all the characters, they say Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford
Oh,
as
you talking
Han
about
Solo.
R2D2?
So the R2D2 thing, everyone is all over that saying, "Hey, why do they diss Kenny Baker like that?" From everything that I've looked into, Kenny Baker did not was not in that role. D2 in this.
Hmm.
They used a robot of some kind to remote control. I don't remember the guy who they said did it, but they said like this. Yeah, he remembers this being as like his first role doing as not playing R2D2, but doing a remote control R2D2. So from everything that I looked into, Kenny Baker was actually not a part of this shoot, which that's probably like he's jumping up and down for not having been a part of that one.
He's he was the smart one, yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, the fact that they said R2D2 playing himself, they wouldn't do that to Kenny Baker because for real Star Wars fans, I think even at that point in time, they would know who Kenny Baker is because R2 is a main part of the New Hope. So
Mm.
I think that they would have name dropped him if he was in it. I do think that kind of makes those what few sources I did look into probably accurate if they don't actually mention him in this. Um, yeah, it's just like, everyone's over here like saying all these things, and I'm like, but from everything I can see, he's not actually in this. So, but yeah, uh, Han Solo, he's never seen it, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, I did watch I watched some stuff about the Christmas special day too, and one of them was the interview where I don't know if it was actually like Conan O'Brien's show or when he was hosting the Tonight Show, the Late Show, whatever. When he was hosting one of those, I don't know which one it was, but
Mm.
it was Harrison Ford and Conan O'Brien, and Conan was saying like, like you're talking about, and Harrison Ford is trying to deny the fact that he even knew it existed.
His face when Conan starts talking about it, he's like looking off to the side, like oh, I think someone's calling me over there. Like, hey, can you get me out of here?
And then
It was
and then
definitely funny.
Conan has like plays the tape of like the oh, clips from the Christmas special or the holiday special.
Uh, which okay, it wasn't the greatest part. It wasn't like amazing, but Harrison Ford was about the only good thing about that movie, and uh, that like not the worst part of the movie.
Mm.
So
And then you have
I,
Luke Skywalker over here. Is trying to not blink the whole time.
yeah, that was unsettling. Um,
Did they just like
yeah,
did okay? You have to wonder if like the day he came in to film that, if like the whole makeup department was on strike or something, so he had to do it himself. Like I don't know what like.
it's so caked up. Like I understand he had just been in an accident and he had scars on his face and like probably problems with that. But I don't feel like you'd need that much makeup caked up, especially to the point where you can't blink. For his whatever happened to his face. It was bad. Um, I do want. How did you get through uh watching an aroused old Wookiee?
Oh gosh, that was that. Well, I don't know. That was one of the
It
worst
was
parts
all.
of this. I don't know if
I
I'm.
think because I think it was a sexualized moment. I think that makes it the worst.
Yeah, okay. But
It
that was
was bad.
so uncomfortable. Like,
The only thing that got me through it was the fact that me and Sarah were simultaneously screaming in the background. We're like, what's going on? Interesting. You know how I don't know if I
oh,
mentioned this last week when we were talking about the Hunger Games movie. Um, but said this when we got done with it. Hunger Games movie was 3 hours, roughly. It
mm.
was a little less than 3 hours, but it was about 3 hours long, and it did not feel like a 3 hour movie. This movie was an hour and a half. It felt like a 3 hour movie. It drug on forever.
And then I don't even really remember the whole cantina thing at the end because I
Uh,
was so just wanting it to be over. Like,
okay, okay, what was going on with his head? He was pouring the drinks into his head.
I I, I don't know.
It doesn't make much sense. I mean, none of this makes sense. There's no, and the thing is too. So the Empire is searching through their house, right? And then this show comes on. Now, the show makes no sense either. It's like live from Tatooine, a day in a life. I don't know what it was called, whatever. But then it goes into this bar, and then an announcement comes on for apparently galaxy wide saying that Tatooine is to be shut down and everyone's supposed to go home. And then we jump back into the scene and we have a musical number. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. The ending made no
Oh
sense.
gosh, no. Okay, I know we're jumping all over the place with this, but like, they,
It did too.
yeah, it makes no like they're the special has no rhyme or reason to it, so I feel like it's fine that we're just jumping all over the place. But yeah, the ending.
As much sense as the special did.
Okay, so yeah, for those of you who did not watch it, the ending consists of Chewie finally getting home to his wife and son and dad, and then they put on robes, walk through space into a portal, and end up at the life tree.
Mhm. The life tree are Han, Chewie, Han, Luke, CPO, and R2D2 for some reason. Also, Han had just dropped off Chewie.
Yeah, and
Um,
then Leia sings a song to the tune of the Star Wars theme song.
which makes total sense. Um,
So does that mean that the Star Wars theme song exists inside of the Star Wars universe?
yeah. I had seen that before. I don't know nor care, but I will say, I don't know if it came through because I think I'll cut out. But has a really good voice.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, one of the conditions of her coming on the special was that she would get to sing. So that was her. One of the conditions for Mark Hamill was that he would not have to sing. So, uh, but yeah. I also saw. So apparently, at the point of the time when they were doing the life tree scene, so that was filmed in a airport hangar, an abandoned airport hangar, and the lighting was done with candles of some kind, is what I saw and heard. But apparently, the reason is because they had no budget at this point in time. So all the other Wookiees that are there are wearing Chewbacca masks that you can get from the store. That's why they have the robes on. I assume. Um, and so then we get that scene there, and
I'm
then all of a
surprised.
sudden he's magically back home. You know.
I'm surprised this movie had a budget at all.
Know what the budget was. I didn't look up into this. I thought that maybe at some point you would have had that
Well,
with
actually, I
doing
keep.
trivia.
And this thing, I keep calling it a movie, and it's not a movie. It's a TV special.
Yeah, it's a TV special. So the thing too is, I think NBC made it. Um, C Original Network, CBS. Sorry. Apparently CBS made it. And I'm just like, okay. The reason George agreed to it, the opportunity to make toys, which never ended up happening until like the early 2000s when a Boba Fett toy was made off of the cartoon. And to keep Star Wars fresh in the minds of viewers, which I will dare say it probably did keep it pretty fresh in their mind. It was just a scarring image. But I just don't- I the network reached out to him, but it's like I just don't know like whose idea really was to do this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I do know George Lucas has said in recent years that if he had the time and money, he would go around and destroy every copy of this special that exists.
Yes. I think that he's going to be unable to do that now just because of the fact that it's it's just all over. I mean, the fact that it's circulating currently because it aired that one time on TV and that was it. Somehow it's been able to circulate since then, but that one airing that it got, I know this because I thought you might be doing trivia. November 17th, 1978 is the only airing that it ever got,
Yeah,
and it's never been officially released.
there were physical copies made. Like you said, Carrie Fisher had one. And at some
Mm.
point, presumably someone digitized one, and you can find it on YouTube right now. That's how we watched. I'm
What?
assuming that's how you watched it, but
Yes. No, I have a copy, David.
oh, okay. But
I'm a real Star Wars fan.
The funniest thing though is the top comment. I just have to scroll down and see the top comment. The top comment is neither Disney or Lucasfilm will copyright strike this because they don't want to admit that they own it.
Yeah, they're like slide. Yeah. So what I see here is that the budget for the holiday special was roughly $1 million. So someone spent about $1 million on this thing.
Well, think about that too. $1 million in '78. That's hold up. I can put that into an inflation calculator, but let me figure out how much it
This
is.
is what that actually looks like. Yeah. Needless to say, like I do also want to mention this. So, um, watching this movie and any Star Trek fans out there, I don't want to hate on y'all. Um, I'm on the other side of the fandom. It felt like Star Trek. Now, main reason I say that is because, like, okay, to communicate, they used TV transmitters, so they talked through the TV, which made no sense because Star Wars had established already that they talked through holograms. So the fact that they were using TVs really made it feel like Star Trek, but Star Trek also started on a lower budget
Mm.
because it was the TV show, but it really just felt like Star Trek. If anyone out there is a Star Trek fan who's offended, well, I don't really care because Star Trek's not my thing. David, what's the actual amount today's money?
Not actually as much as I thought it would be, but $4.5 million.
More than they need for a TV special.
They spent $4.5 million on this thing, on this. Yeah, I used the right word the first time. Thing.
Yeah, this abomination. In all honesty,
Mm.
what's crazy too? This was a year after. It's a little over a year after the first Star Wars movie came out. Star Wars has been around for 40 years now. So this didn't tank it. Also, this movie came right before what is considered one of, if not the best Star Wars movie ever created. Now, granted, like we've talked about, George Lucas did not make this.
Mm.
He just allowed a network to use his
Well,
his
and
characters and
the thing
storyline.
it aired between like one of the what is considered like one of the best movies ever made and one of the best what is considered one of the best sequels ever made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it when in Pitch Me. The YouTube channel that he has, it's hilarious. It has great jokes. He does a great job over there. Um, but he started off with the Christmas pitch, and he was like, "Oh, so you have a movie for me?" He was like, "Yes, sir, I do." It's like, "You know about Star Wars?" He's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Oh, you wanna make the best sequel that anyone's ever seen?" No, not yet. And it's like no, no, no. We're gonna make a really, really trash one first, and then we're
But like
you
like
know.
and I know well, I don't know how much of the like Christmas movie tropes existed back then because I know like
Mm,
a lot of the Christmas movies that like we're familiar with or were more recent. I mean, you did have like It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street and White Christmas and all those, but like you know, I was thinking like like some of the tropes more like Home Alone would have done really well in this. Like picture Home Alone set in the Star Wars universe.
mm.
Like that would have been much better. Or even actually do a spoof of It's a Wonderful Life in in the Star Wars universe.
Saying just about anything would have been better than what we got.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, in all honesty, even just the basic premise of what this holiday special was supposed to be, Chewie going home for Life Day, could have been better than what we got. because they added it at the beginning and they shoehorned in other parts with Han and Chewie in the ship. I mean, okay, this was mentioned in one video that I was watching, and it really is stupid. Um, Han doesn't know how to use hyperspace because when in the first scene they're being chased, right? And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to turn back." To where? To no, that's stupid. So jump into hyperspace. Well, then they jump, and then later on you find out that they messed up the coordinates. Oh, you messed up the. Do you not know how to use this? I mean, like, it really is like idiots for idiots' sake kind of a
Mm,
thing, you know? And like
yeah.
it's just poor writing, and Harrison Ford did the best he could with this role.
Also,
No one faults him for it. Nobody remembers it.
they mentioned light speed. They call it the hyperspace light speed, and I don't know if they did in the original trilogy call it light speed. Did they?
I don't remember. I was gonna just say
Okay,
I agree with you.
because I can't remember if they did or not, but in Star Wars canon now, it's not technically light speed. Hyperspace is a it's like it's another dimension. You're jumping into another in and out of
Hmm.
another dimension. It's like the Nether in Minecraft where distances are shorter, so you're not really going faster. You're just taking a shortcut.
Yeah, yeah. I so in recent years, um, there are small little details in from what I've seen and some mentioning. I think it's just because I think in Mandalorian at one point mentions Life Day. I think there's like something. I've seen some other stuff from some of the other TV
I think
shows where
there's
there's
also a
small.
reference in Boba Fett too, the Book of Boba Fett.
There's like small little references that basically are starting to canonize bits of the holiday special. I feel like sometime we should go through those. I haven't done my research, so I don't necessarily know. I don't think it's canon. It's not. We're just gonna. It's not. Um, but how do you feel about Star Wars taking elements from that?
Okay, I don't think it's all bad. They just managed to take all these elements that they had and put them together in the worst possible way.
Hmm. Now, I think the biggest reason why I think that this is not canon is because I don't think Chewbacca has a family like that. I don't think that he has a wife and a son
Also,
in traditional canon. He might canon.
it's not like they don't live on Kashyyyk. That I forget what the name of the planet they said it was, but
It
they don't.
was not Kashyyyk. It was started with a K, and it sounded like if you weren't thinking, it sounded like Kashyyyk. But yeah, I heard that too. I don't remember what it was, but it was not Kashyyyk. It turned into Kashyyyk.
Mm. Now, one thing I do want to talk about. I forget the character's name, but the guy from the like store or whatever.
Trader Joe.
Sure, we'll call him Trader Joe because I don't remember his
I
name.
know kept calling him traitor, whatever, and I was thinking, okay, yeah, I understand he is a traitor, but you saying that makes it sound like he's a traitor. Like he's betraying you over here. And I
But
was like, I'm
okay,
just getting so confused.
but that like his character honestly would be a cool character to see in Star Wars canon. Like Han's friend who like gives him intel and stuff, but he technically runs a like an actual legal business in the Empire, but he's got like he works with all the smugglers and stuff. Like that would actually to get intel
So
and stuff
basically,
around. Like
Lando.
not exactly, but
Well, this was the basis for the character of Lando Calrissian. So
mm,
somehow, I mean, you can kind of see it, but
yeah.
apparently, this is what inspired Lando Calrissian. And well, we got Lando Calrissian, so I'll take that. But yeah, I didn't.
Even though we kind of already talked about like the fact that in the original trilogy, well at least in Empire, I mean after watching Return of the Jedi, he's a good guy, but if you just watch Empire, it still looks like he's still a bad guy. by the end of it.
Well, yeah, because you think about it, like he doesn't like the fact that he got portrayed. That's more why he's doing it. But you can make it out in the Empire, like yeah, he's doing this for himself. He's doing it so he doesn't get killed. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want to stick his own neck out there. So yeah, he's not a great guy in Empire, even though at the end of it, he's kind of good.
I mean, he saves Leia and Chewie, but yeah,
Well, the thing is he's not a bad guy. He's not a good guy. We've talked about before. And so he does what's in his best interest. And what was in his best interest when the Empire showed up was to agree to a deal so that he didn't get, he nor his people were genocide. Um, and so like you kind of understand it, but within the realms of his friends, um, you know, watching Empire, you're like, okay, he made a deal with the Empire. Oh, now he's trying to help. It's like seems a little double standard, but it does kind of make sense within the realm of him being who he is. I mean, he can still have friends even if he's in that scum category,
mm, yeah,
more or less. Um, David, I will say this: my brain is not enough from the Christmas special. I don't think I have anything else left to say. Do you?
I think my brain is still mush from watching it.
I know. I don't know when you watched it, but I watched it Sunday, and yeah, I have not had enough time to recuperate.
I watched it earlier this afternoon, so it's like very fresh in my
Oh,
mind.
you're very mushy. That
Well,
sounds interesting. We're gonna not go back to that.
I was about to say it's very fresh in my mind, but at the same time, I don't really remember it. I think I'm already starting to create a mental block. like,
Yeah, yeah, no. In all honesty, I late this week in writing our script for our recap, and yeah, I was trying to remember because like you could like certain things were just stuck in my mind. I find you adorable.
stop.
Yeah, certain things were just in, but then certain things I couldn't remember how it played out. So, David, that's gonna be my new thing. I'm gonna say that every single time I see you,
Oh,
just to creep you out, and I'm gonna try and block that memory so much. It is haunting, haunting. Um, yeah, it was an interesting watch. Safe to say, I will not be adding that to my regular Christmas watch list.
although it might actually be better than the Last Jedi.
We will find out in February, I think.
That's another one that I've kind of had a mental block with.
I
I
have a
don't.
mental block on basically the whole entire sequel trilogy,
Yeah.
but we will be diving into that the first of the year. So, David, I am mush. So let's head into what's new with you.
All right, we can do it. We haven't done that in 2 weeks, so
It's been a while.
yeah.
What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? Yeah!
So, David, what is new with you? It has been a while since we have talked in this segment, and so now I need to know what is new with you. Tell me all the details. Tell me all your secrets.
Well, finally got around to watching the Star Wars holiday special.
What? Same. I
Mm.
hated it. I want to poke my eye. Anything again, scratch that. Actually, I don't want to have the mental images of that racing around in my head because I can't get my eyesight. I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know. That has not seen the holiday special. I'm tired of talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else going on?
Um, what else? What is else going on? Um, It's ruined my vocabulary too. I don't know. Not that I had one that was good to begin with, but you know.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel the same way.
Um. Oh crap! What have I been doing? I know there is stuff that I can talk
Well,
about.
we had Thanksgiving.
We did, yeah. And we went to go see the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but we talked about that last week, so go check that out.
Yeah. Have you been playing any games?
Yes, actually I have.
Oh, what?
So, I'm still playing Fallout New Vegas. I'm at a point now where I don't exactly know how to get to like an ending that I necessarily like, or if that's even possible. So,
Is this the game that you're replaying, or is this a game you're playing for the first time?
playing for the first time, but I know there
Okay.
are 4 endings in it. I don't know what those 4 endings are.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not sure. So basically, the first time I play through an RPG like that, I like to go for, I guess, the good ending, but I don't know if there technically is a good ending that is good for everyone in the Mojave. So I don't,
Just
I'll
kill everyone.
well, although I do know, so one of the characters, um, that I'm pretty sure is one of the endings to the game, if you go do all his quests, is he's called Mr. House. Essentially, he was a pre-war um millionaire that uploaded his consciousness to a computer. Not
Hmm.
technically, but uh, yeah, he uploaded his consciousness to a computer. Um, and then he told me to like I was going to do his ending or try to. I'm assuming that's one of the endings, and he told me to wipe out the Brotherhood of Steel, which I've been doing quests with too. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
You scared?
Hmm?
Did I cut out again?
I'm just trying to figure out what you're asking me. What I'm scared of.
Of wiping out the Brotherhood. It's the last thing I heard.
No, I just don't want to.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Hmm. Yeah, and I also started
Well,
getting back into Shadow of War, Middle Earth Shadow of War. That's the sequel to Shadow of
okay.
Mordor.
I still need to finish that.
So those games I really like. It's basically Assassin's Creed in Middle Earth, like that world. Except
They're extremely fun.
yeah, the mechanics and the gameplay is amazing, really fun. I just
Blast.
I just have to disconnect my Tolkien nerd part of it for the story because it's not it
Hey, at one point
doesn't.
I was asking Sarah, I was like, okay, so how does this fit in? And she was like, yeah, no, just no. It's not. It's like it's its own thing. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah, it does not fit in whatsoever. And the second game, especially, it does not fit in
Now,
at all.
do the two games fit together
Yeah,
fine
so
or
yeah, so the second one picks up right after the first one.
okay? Well, as long as it's fit together fine, I think
Yeah.
that's more important than if they're already gonna stray away from the original lore. You know, at least let the two games.
Hmm.
So then there's something to follow along to. You
Yeah. Now,
know.
there is one thing that is in it that I actually don't necessarily know how I feel. Like one lore decision, I don't know necessarily how I feel about it, if I like it or not, because it's technically not entirely wrong, but there's nothing in middle in like in the legendarium to indicate that that's the case. And it's kind of a spoiler for the second game, so I don't know if you want me to get
I
into that.
won't. It'll be long. It'll be a while before I get around to playing any of that. So go ahead, spoil it for me, David.
Well, basically, Shelob is one of the characters in the second game,
Hmm.
and to actually have like, make her an actual character, she can shapeshift into a human, which is not like I said. So in the actual lore, Shelob is a descendant of Ungoliant, which they're not actually spiders. They just take the form of spiders. They're not actually animals. But at the same time, there's nothing that indicates that they can change form. So, but yeah,
Cool.
those games are fun. So what have you been up to?
I'm playing it. I'm playing a new game,
Oh, really?
and we'll see how this goes. I have just recently started playing Ocarina of Time.
On what?
So, Nintendo Switch,
Are you playing it on the like old the?
the past thing.
So you have the like Switch Online Plus or whatever it's called. I forget what it's called, but the one that comes with the N64
Whatever it was,
library.
needed to play that. So we're playing that. There's a couple other games that on there that we were gonna play, but that was a big part of it. Also, with that, we are able to get the stuff for the Mario Kart newer races
Yeah,
um,
so that's the
on Mario Kart 8.
that's the like higher tier of the Switch Online. I forget exactly what it's called, but
I
yeah.
think so. But playing, I gotten through the first little bit of Ocarina of Time, and I'm liking it. I think that the game mechanics are a little weird, especially since this is a similar style game to and I expect things to work differently than they do. So
So
sometimes they just don't work out for me. So I'm having to get the mechanics down because it's also a different, like, least on a different device, so the controls are a little bit different, and so I'm having to figure out how the controls are mapped onto the controller that I have. So
mm,
there's some things that are a little bit awkward with it, but for the most part, I mean, I'm getting it down, and eventually I'll get the muscle memory once playing it enough. I mean, I've only played it like 2 or 3 nights,
yeah, because
so
the N64 was not the greatest control. Like
yeah.
for when it came out, it was revolutionary. But like now, the controls are so janky, and
Yeah, we with that pack, there was a Pokemon tournament fighter thing in there. I don't remember what it was called. But me and Sarah were gonna play it. Um, and we had to stop because now granted, starting out I was using a single Joy-Con because we were both gonna play and we only have the set. It's a lot easier when and eventually we are gonna try and get another controller so that we can both play. But yeah, the controller doesn't really change if you use both. They're just a little less janky.
mm,
Um,
well,
but
and
it's definitely interesting.
mm,
This cat cannot take a hint. I keep throwing it out of my lap, and it keeps saying, "Nope, I think you want." She loves me, and I don't. I mean, I'm glad because but I don't want her here right now.
mm. Now you talking about that like you can get an N64 controller that works on Switch.
Hmm.
And that would probably honestly be better than playing it with the Joy Cons, like actually mapping it to the right buttons and stuff. But at the same time, like the
Who
controls are
actually
still
wants
janky.
that?
Well, and also
Yeah.
the N64 controller in general is just weird.
Yeah, I don't want an N64 controller for much of anything. So I'll just learn the map controls.
Hmm. I mean,
But all in
if you
all,
had three
it's pretty
hands,
fun.
the N64 controller might not be the worst thing in the world, but
As sadly, I am no crap. The lady from the cooking show, she had a name. So her, and I don't have 3 or 4 hands, depending on what
I
I'm
was
doing.
trying to block all that out since we're done talking about it.
It's still the pod. We still got it's coming up. But
Oh
but
gosh.
yeah. I think other than that, I'm mostly good. I guess I do technically need to have an announcement made on here because Robert told um so I'm assuming that I need to make the announcement. It's not that big of a deal because pretty much anyone who listens to this right now is family. But
Hmm.
me and Sarah are collectively pregnant, so we're going to be having a baby. That's how that works, David.
I know,
Oh,
but
wait.
I don't think you need to say collectively, but
No,
yes.
we're collectively pregnant. I wanted to make sure, and then we'll throw that up there. We'll give I'm giving myself a clap because you forgot it, David. Um, and this baby is coming sometime around the 1st of May, and so I want to put it out there, trying to convince Sarah that um, if it comes on May the 4th, we have to name it after Leia.
Well, I just told Sarah that at least you don't want to name it Chewbacca.
Lumpy.
Oh gosh. Oh no.
Well, Lumpy or Mala. I'm going to be pretty discreet with this, and this is not going to be going to talk about. I don't think it will really hinder much of the production of our podcast come May. I think I'll still be fine to do what we're doing. And I'm not really going to talk too much about it outside of this. I am very much one that believes my personal life is personal. I mean, we talk on here about things that aren't quite that
Mm.
stuff that we're doing in our personal life, sure. But I'm not going to bring my family into this. Not, Sarah obviously has been on the channel a bunch of times. Um, but this is about all anyone's going to hear about it. Um, but yeah, just that little bit of an announcement doesn't really need to be much known. If later down the road, uh, more people start listening to this, then they'll probably know. But for now, yeah, that's about it. We may or may not have a different schedule come May, depends on the circumstances, but we'll deal with that when we deal with that. So but that's about all that's going on with me.
Well,
And you know what? I think I do like that idea though, David. Lumpy or Mala actually doesn't sound horrible. Lumpy sounds lumpy.
what about Itchy?
I think Itchy might be a good idea too.
Okay. Um,
We
since
could have 3 names.
since we
Continue.
didn't since we didn't do trivia or not trivia, what's the other thing we do?
News.
News this week.
Trailcast news.
Trillcast news, yeah. Like I said, the Star Wars Holiday Special melted my brain. Oh,
He had very little to melt, so it went really quickly. It's like having a tiny little ice. And then once you start heating it up, it's basically a puddle instantaneously.
anyway, Star Wars. That's what
Yes.
I was gonna
David, do
talk
you want
about.
me to take over? Do you want me to take over this since you're having problems?
So Dave Filoni is now the chief creative officer of Star Wars at Lucasfilm. Right? Did I get that right?
Yes, did. Yes, you did. Your brain is only mostly melted.
Uh,
Does that scare you?
that was loud. Oh. But yes, and this is one thing that we have talked about in the past that we wanted to see happen. So,
Yeah.
I think Lucasfilm, for once, actually made the right decision.
But will it matter?
Is it too late?
Yeah, I do wonder about that. I also wonder, and I was listening to a Star Wars podcast the other day, um, and they were talking about how, um, so with the way Star Wars is going currently, Ahsoka's the big hitter because it's Dave Filoni's project, essentially. And apparently, even though George Lucas did originally help write the character of Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, um, George Lucas apparently has long since wanted to have her killed off. But because Dave is more in charge and he's in charge of characters and stuff like that, he's stretched her life out a lot longer. So I wonder, despite the fact that Dave is such a huge Star Wars fan, how much of this is going to be things that we collectively as Star Wars fans want to see, and how much of it, like in the lines of like, it's like, oh, George Lucas Star Wars is the purest Star Wars because George Lucas came up with it. And for the longest time, and I still think this, the person who's best going to give us George Lucas Star Wars is going to be Dave Filoni. But is
Mm-hmm.
he going to give us? Is he really going to give us like? Is he going to really stay true to George? Okays and green lights and makes in the future? You know,
I don't
like
know.
okay, personally, I didn't like Ahsoka, and there was like 2 episodes that I liked of it. Okay, I mean, like what was it, 4 and 5 or 5 and 6, one of the two. You liked Ahsoka, but I think you still had some problems with it. That was a full. Dave Filoni wrote that. Dave Filoni directed that. That was his show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, yes, he came up with, but he had George Lucas help with that too. Um, had a big hand in it before Disney bought it out. He did come up with Rebels. Now, within Star Wars, is not as revered as Clone Wars is. Rebels is a little hit or miss depending on the Star Wars fan you're talking to. I liked Rebels. I thought it was good. I've only seen it once, so maybe I need to watch it again. I don't know. And then this came out. Now he has had a hand in some of the Mandalorian stuff, but I'm playing kind of a devil's advocate here, and I do think full Dave Filoni is better than most anyone there, but I'm just not sure if Dave Filoni can right the ship like we all think he can. You know, whether it's too late or whether he's not going to do what we. There's like, what am I supposed to do with this?
I don't know. I mean, okay. And here's the big, like, one of the big things why I still. Okay, he is the best chance Star Wars has. Regardless of whether you like what he's done in recent years or
So
not.
what I'm saying, oh, am I not coming through?
Yeah, you're coming through.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I agree with that. He is the best chance that Star Wars has. I guess more so what I'm asking is good chance. I mean, like, I think it's a decent chance, but like, I don't know. I'm curious to see what.
And here's another thing too. So, of what Disney has made, Star Wars. I know Rogue One has a soft spot for you, but for me, the best thing Disney Lucasfilm has made is the finale of the Clone Wars. Those last 4 episodes of season 7,
Hmm.
and that was all Dave Filoni.
Yeah, but if you look at the track record of him, one good thing within the rest of the things that are hit or miss. Like I think Rebels had a good reception, but not everyone likes it.
Mm.
I mean, even Ahsoka had a pretty decent reception, but again, not everyone likes it. It's because it's obviously okay. The biggest thing with Star Wars, I understand that, and I think the biggest thing is I hope going forwards that Dave Filoni makes Star Wars something that I will enjoy, because in all honesty, I'm the only one that matters when it comes to my preferences, and if I'm not entertained by it, then I have a problem with it. If I'm entertained by it, then he's the best thing since sliced cheese. But you know, like you said, yes, I do agree. I do agree. The Clone Wars last couple episodes that those are some really really powerful emotional episodes, and they're amazing, very well done. Um, but I do also wonder, like, how much Ahsoka is going to be getting shoved down our throats just because it's uh, a character Dave Filoni came up with. Like I said, I really like Ahsoka. I think she's a great character. But at what point in time has she outrun her usefulness? At what point in time is she like I said, I do not really care for the Ahsoka TV show. If that's the Ahsoka board, I may not care for Ahsoka as much. Now I'm still going to like Clone Wars,
And well,
but
so here's the thing too.
it's
So
different.
the way the Ahsoka show ended, I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I'm not saying it's not gonna happen this way. But the way the Ahsoka show ended, they can take a break from that character for a while, like a long while. I mean, obviously they're gonna come back to her at some point because they kind of set that up. But honestly, they could leave with the way it ended. They can leave her out of Heir to the Empire and then use her for some future project.
Yeah, I mean they can. Um, but all like I'm not discounting the fact that I do think Dave Filoni is the best chance Star Wars has. I am extremely happy and excited to see what he does and all as the chief creative officer. And I think that's a great move on Lucasfilm's part. Next thing they need to do is get rid of Kathleen Kennedy. Um, and but just because you're starting to right the ship does not mean that it's immediately going to be better. I mean, you
Now,
know, this is not an overnight thing. This is something that's going to take some time.
mm, now one of the big or one thing that does kind of make me worried for what he's doing with this stuff after Return of the Jedi is in this time period, all roads lead to the sequels. It's just looming in the future. Like it's going to have to connect somehow because whether we like it or not, the sequels happened. They're canon.
Will that make it better? Getting explanations for how the sequels came about. Because I think one thing,
Possibly.
like one huge thing that doesn't make sense within the sequels, and I know we've talked about a bunch of criticism about it, is that the characterization of Luke. Luke is not the Luke that we left at the end of Return of the Jedi. Throughout the whole entire sequel trilogy, ends the original trilogy with a Jedi Knight who is hopeful, and he sees the good in other people, and he's all around just he's good, he cares, and he is hopeful. And come around to the sequel trilogy, he doesn't care, he's lost all hope, and he thinks everyone's uh, like he's a completely different character. Now, I don't see a way that you can actually make this make sense at all. Um, Especially with what we are given, with how Ben turned to the dark side and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, I do wonder, like, okay, how are they going to deal with that? With massive screw up that was the sequel trilogy. Like, they all are going to end up at that point sometime.
Mm-hmm.
Also, within this timeline, which at right now, there's a lot of area that needs Luke Skywalker. Like you can't have anything big happen in the unit galaxy, Skywalker being a part of it. So how are they going to deal with that?
Mm.
Are they just going to
Which
keep
that's
doing the
actually
CG that they've been doing, or
one thing that I heard people talking about with in Ahsoka when Thrawn is like when the Night Mothers first tell Thrawn about that Ahsoka's coming. He's like, it's only one ship, and he for a second there he's almost scared.
mm,
I think he thought Luke was coming. Because you think about it, he has to know Luke. He
does he
has to
know
know
who Luke
who.
is?
If he knows all this
Because
other
think
stuff going on,
Rebels
if he knows all this other stuff going on in
this
the
happens before Luke leaves Tatooine.
yes, but the Night Mothers have been telling him all this stuff that has been happening across the galaxy, and of course
Well, that shows how much I pay attention to the Ahsoka.
they're going to tell him about this Jedi Knight,
Mm-hmm.
the son of Darth Vader, who
Mm-hmm.
overthrew the Empire.
A guy who went into a room with the Emperor and Vader and walked out alive
Exactly.
with both of them dead. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, in all honesty, where was Luke during the Ahsoka? A threat that possibly is that big?
Yeah. I mean, they're dealing. They're also dealing with rogue Jedi too, with Baylan Skull and Shin Hati. So I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Whatever.
Ahsoka has helped out the rebellion, but right now Luke is at the forefront and is actually very active in the rebellion. So like, in the New Republic. So
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at this point,
I
well,
mean, it is what it is.
yeah, but I guess they didn't want to have CG Luke in it the whole time.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Also,
But
okay, so I've heard people talking about this, and I want to hear your opinion about this. So, how would you feel if they wanted to have Luke in let's say Heir to the Empire? If they wanted to have Luke in Heir to the Empire, and they got Sebastian Stan to play Luke.
I'd be curious to see like I've seen it. I think if done right, they could do it. Um
Okay,
Now it all
and
would come
here's the thing,
down
like
to his acting.
here's the thing, like you've seen the. I'm assuming you've seen all these pictures and stuff people have made of Sebastian Stan as Luke, and he looks like a young
Mhm.
Mark Hamill. He could pull off the look.
Mhm.
It's the mannerisms that matter, though. If he
Yeah.
doesn't get those
That's the
mannerisms
big thing. The picture
perfect,
looks fine.
if he doesn't get those mannerisms perfect, it's not gonna work.
It'll look like the Christmas special Luke.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like when we talked about Solo, like I think when Alden Ehrenreich actually got the mannerisms down, he did a good job with Solo. It's just there were certain times for most of the movie he didn't have the mannerisms, but when he actually had them, I was like, okay, I can see that. That's a young Han Solo. And I think that's what
Mhm.
matters in this, and it also matters a lot more getting the look right too, because we've also seen Luke Skywalker younger than this and older than this. So we need the right look
Yeah.
and the mannerisms to be perfect.
Yeah. Um I think this is a horrible idea. How enraged would you be if at any point in time you heard that they were going to recast and reboot Star Wars?
That is a terrible idea.
I've also heard that of them talking about recasting Luke Skywalker for movies that they'd be making now. Now if they did something like you're saying, where they basically just cast for a young version of him, um, it wouldn't make complete sense if you watch the original trilogy and then whatever this is, and then the sequel, because you're like, hey, wait, this is the same actor. It would make sense in the timeline of how they made these. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I've heard people talking about, it and they're like, "Well, what makes Star Wars so sacred that they can't recast? Like, look at Star Trek, look at Marvel, look at DC." No, Star Wars is sacred enough. You do not recast it. It's
Well, I mean, also technically they didn't in
still, it is just still going somewhat strong,
mm,
somewhat. And it's like, and they've done so like they made a cool trilogy. They made a sequel. There's so much you can do. You don't have to recast them. You keep what you have and you fit other characters to make this timeline all work. You don't redo what's already been done.
mm. Yeah, we don't need a new Star Trek trilogy, which those movies are good, but it's still kind of weird that like it's a reboot that's still canon to the original because it's a separate timeline and like Spock is still in it, like the old Spock's still in it, but there's also a new Spock yeah, like I said, we don't need that in Star Wars.
I also wonder, okay, tell me if you think this is a hot take. Um, Watching uh post Empire Star Wars, I've gotten enough from the Empire era and after. I don't need to see the aftermath of the galaxy when Luke's alive. I don't need to see any more of that. I've seen it. I've seen enough. If you want to add things maybe in video games, do that. But I don't need to see any more shows that take place just after the Empire has do something that takes place later on in the series. Like when in all honesty, go make that Ray trilogy. Just make it good this time, and actually make a cohesive story that makes sense, that you plan
Or
from the beginning, and have actual character development.
or if you're going to make a sequel, why don't you set it so far into the future that you can't ruin any of the existing timeline?
Yeah, it doesn't. It does. Here's the thing: Star Wars character is to see the Star Wars logo appear on screen with the Star Wars theme. We don't have to see old actors who have played in them before reappear on sometimes nice, but if you do it and you do it wrong, it's not gonna go well. Like it's just not.
Yeah, one thing, one area I think they should focus on is like not necessarily older public, but pre Phantom Menace,
Mhm.
like
There's
Mandalorian
so
Wars.
much to that I'd love to see.
Like they could do so much with the Mandalorian Wars. They could do, um, I mean, heck, they could even get into the older public. They could get into the Sith Empire. They could do all.
Give me Revan is too old.
Let's face it, they'll ruin Revan if they try to adapt him to a movie.
Yeah, I feel like I'd rather see him in a Clone Wars style TV show. In fact, that'd have a less likelihood of getting ruined. Probably
Mm-hmm.
still get ruined.
Mm-hmm. And like
Maybe
like
one day we'll be able to make something.
I think it was a couple weeks ago we were talking about this with the power creep in Star Wars, or not power creep, the because a lot of people are talking about Star Killer. The Star Killer from the games is too overpowered to be in canon Star Wars. But if you set it that far in the past, or set it like really far in the future, you can have like super overpowered characters, and you won't have to ask where they are in this the original stuff because they weren't alive then. You can make some super overpowered characters and have them, like we could basically get to see some like in-game level fights in the Star Wars universe.
And also, like, you could even say it makes sense because, like, okay, what during the time of Revan, there were things taught that were lost to the ages.
Mm,
Like Revan knew how to do things that Sith Lords and at any point in time in what we watch on the main screen never knew because it didn't get passed down, and he didn't know things that Sith Lords because they didn't get passed down. And then if you go into the future far enough, you can have new abilities come and they learned a new ability somehow. And like it makes sense as to why it wasn't something that was taught or figured out at this point in Star Wars history. It was either lost or figured out later on. And it makes sense as the most powerful Jedi during the Clone Wars era and during the Empire didn't know this power.
mm,
It makes sense.
mm. Because like
Oh.
Because like in canon, what is canon right now? Like if you include Legends, like both the Jedi Order and the Sith in the time of like the Clone Wars and Galactic Civil War were probably the weakest they had ever been.
Mm.
Just cause,
Yeah. They got comfortable.
yeah, and yeah, it makes sense. Like the Sith were in hiding. They, if they got too powerful, the Jedi would sense them, and the Jedi thought the Sith were extinct, so they didn't see a need to become more powerful.
One of the arguments that I have as to why I don't think Sidious is up there with the most powerful Sith Lords, because I think that there are plenty from previous generations that were a lot more powerful because they knew more things. Now, granted, without basically without Vader turning on Palpatine, the Emperor would have had immortality.
Mm.
Hands down. If Vader at that moment in time did not turn on one, he would have immortality. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if he were to go face to face against some of the other Sith Lords of old, that he would win. That just means that he was able to achieve a power of that status against, like, no one would have been able to kill him moving forward.
Now, one thing to think about, like we were talking about with the like Sith Lord from the past being more powerful. It almost makes sense too, because think about, like, especially with the Rule of Two era. Think about the way the Sith work. The master teaches the apprentice until the apprentice can get powerful enough to kill the master. Doesn't mean the apprentice knows everything the master knew. So there's going to be
Yeah.
every generation of Sith. There's going to be lost knowledge.
Well, I mean, even like if and I'm pretty sure we've talked about how I know I've read the Plagueis novel. I'm pretty sure you said at one point you did too. And in that, Sidious is like, I'm pretty sure I've learned everything that he can teach me. Now it's time for necessarily know if Plagueis has, given him all the knowledge that he knows. He's just like, I think I've gotten everything that I need from him.
Mm.
It's like
And
it's the guessing game. It's the
mm.
guessing game of trying to figure.
And that's the thing too. Like with yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about, like, the what if things in Star Wars, and one of the most popular ones is what if Anakin had beat Obi-Wan on Mustafar. And everyone I've heard said that says like Anakin would almost immediately go track down Palpatine and kill him.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it'd be that quick, but I do think Anakin would have killed Palpatine within like the first 10 years of the Empire. just because
Yeah, probably.
because he was that he would have become that powerful, and he was that arrogant too.
Well, he was already at the mindset that he said my new empire.
Mm.
He wasn't saying me and Palps. No, he was saying my new empire. He wasn't gonna plan. He wasn't planning on. I mean, he even talked to Padme about it. He was like, "I can overthrow the emperor. Like I'll be like." He one, he was arrogant. But two, he also had some power to back it up. Now, let me ask you this: where do you peak? Like, if he were to reach it, do you think he would be the most powerful Force user? And what I mean by that is Anakin, if he never got chopped up, becomes Vader, um, and kills the Emperor. So basically, he has no actual teachers, and he has to essentially learn everything through Holocron's old text, the civic teacher.
I think he could have, maybe not the most powerful, but he could have been one of the most powerful users in like
See,
Legends.
I'll agree with that. The fact that he could have been, and he probably would have been one of. I don't think he's powerful because of the lack of knowledge that he would have, because he
Because
wouldn't know how to do everything.
yes, he could have learned a bunch of stuff from the texts and the holocrons and stuff, but like we talked about earlier, like from Legends, a lot of the like old Republic era Force knowledge was lost by the time of the Clone Wars.
I mean, granted, you could probably learn some of that through meditating in the forest and like
Rediscover it,
just
yeah.
rediscover it. But I don't know. Okay, so there's a lot there, because do you think that Anakin would have become immortal essentially if he had never gotten chopped up? He would have been able to unlock that power of immortality to some extent. And so instead of having a normal like 80 years that humans live, he would have had, maybe even 1,000 years, a couple hundred years,
Mm. Well,
which would
you
give him
also,
extra time to unlock more powers. And he would have the highest
mm,
ceiling of anyone.
yeah.
So
And I'm not saying
I guess
he,
I'm defeating my argument.
yeah, I'm not saying he wouldn't have, become immortal, but you also have to ask this too: was Palpatine lying about Plagueis having that power?
It depends on what you can. Obviously, right now, the Plagueis novel is not technically canon. There are, I think, a couple contradictions between the novel and the prequels. If you look at it, I mean, I think it still could work, but it doesn't really work, mostly with Plagueis' death time. But if the Plagueis novel is canon, then yes, he was able to do that. Um, but if um, or no, if not, it still could be something that he's lying about. Now,
Mm,
granted, that being said, it wasn't like Sith lords of old um did or the abilities for
mm,
immortality. So
yeah.
obviously, those again are legends, but in the Star Wars universe, there is the case.
Mm. But well, and I've told you, why I don't like and it's the timeline that I don't really like with the uh um
Plagueis novel.
Plagueis novel, yeah, because in that Palpatine kills Plagueis after became Supreme Chancellor, and I told you I don't really like that because that kind of diminishes the fact of Darth Maul being a Sith Lord.
See, I don't really care much about that. I never really even see, like, in all honesty, Darth Maul is not a Sith Lord. Like, technically, he might have the title of it in a Phantom Menace, But in all honesty, like as of what, like he's not a Sith Lord. Even later on, like when he gets his full power, most full power, like he's doing the crime syndicate stuff like that. Like he eventually calls himself the Sith Lord, but in that title. And while I understand people being not liking the way the Plagueis novel plays out and the timeline of it. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. And I like the fact that Plagueis is behind the scenes. Like I think that's a cool aspect of it. And I feel like the timeline for when Palpatine would kill Plagueis would make place. Like I said, I understand why people don't like it. Like
Mm.
it makes sense. You're not the first person that I've talked to about this that doesn't like it, and you probably won't be the last
Well,
in the in any future. So I understand it. I'm on a different side of the fence. I don't
mm.
necessarily care too much about that. This is the way that I see.
Well, and it's not really just not even really the fact of like the fact that I like the character of Darth Maul. It's more just the fact of like he had the title of Darth, which is the title given to Sith Lords.
Yeah, I mean that's fair too. Is like you talk about it. Um, you could bring up the idea of like Asajj Ventress or whatever, but she's Asajj Ventress. She doesn't have the title of Darth, so there is that aspect of it. And Plagueis does. I'm pretty sure I remember him actually calling him my apprentice Darth Maul. So it could also be an idea of Plagueis tell or not Plagueis. Sidious calls him his apprentice Darth Maul in the idea of basically this is the two. So you could put it in that perspective as that's why he
Mm-hmm.
was quote unquote given the title of Darth, even though in Plagueis's eyes he was still just a Sith assassin, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh,
it's not like the Rule of Two was followed that well within much of Star Wars.
yeah. Well, I mean, look at in the just in the Clone Wars. I mean, all at the same time you have technically the two Sith, you know Darth Sidious and Darth Tyrannus, but then you have Asajj Ventress, which is Darth Tyrannus's apprentice. Then you have
You
Maul and
have
you have Maul and Savage Press, and then you also have the Night Mother or Mother Talzin
Haza.
and all the Night Sisters, which are dark side users. They're not Sith, but they're dark side users. So where exactly are you drawing the line on this? I mean, I know the Night Sisters don't technically count, but the um but Asajj Ventress and Maul and Savage Repress do. So where are you drawing the line on this? Because they're not technically Sith anymore. Well, Asajj Ventress never was, but they're trained in the Sith arts. So what?
Hmm. What's that thing too is like if you are trained in the Force, essentially, but you're I mean, like, yeah, what you're not a Jedi, you're not a Sith. What are you classified as? You have these not them in, but it's like, okay, what if they don't fit that box? What are they technically called? Now they're just called, I'm pretty sure, dark side force users, whatever. But yeah, you do have those things that they're, I mean, obviously it's understandable why the Clone Wars did that, but it also did open up the door to be like, well, yeah, in a galaxy this big, must have two Sith. You're gonna have multiple people probably practicing the dark side of the Force, whether
Mm,
they're within the Rule of Two consists of Bane, so that's the Sith Lord title coming down through the lineage of Bane. But you still will have other people who are, like Asajj Ventress. I don't remember how she comes in the Clone Wars, but I know in the 2D animated series, she already has, um, light. I think she already has lightsabers, maybe. But she definitely already knows how to use the Force pretty well. And so it's like, well, I mean, obviously she's a knight who are already doing things like this in the Star Wars universe, and it kind of caused that.
Hmm.
In the light, because yeah, Galaxy that you're gonna have more than two.
You cut out for a while there. I don't know if I caught much of what you said, but
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Um, Basically, all I was saying is that in a galaxy that big, you're gonna
you're gonna have more Force
the
users than
Force.
just the
Yeah,
yeah, more dark side users than just
yeah,
Sith.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And see,
Um,
that's honestly another part of Star Wars
yeah.
that I would like for them to explore more. Like the only thing they've really done with that was the Night Sisters, but like if the Force is this thing that holds the whole universe together, there's gonna be more than just the Jedi and the Sith that are Force users.
You would think there should be. Um, Let me ask you this. This is something that's been on my mind recently when it comes to Star Wars, and I want to know what you think about this. So it's basically something that's come resurfaced within the Ahsoka show new. And the fact that anyone technically can use the Force. Midichlorians reside in all of us, and midichlorians give us. So technically, everyone can use the Force. Well, this is from George Lucas himself, so you can't argue with the main man. Um, I'm not here to argue is it real or not. I want to know what your thought is. Does this make Jedi less special? I think it does. I don't really care for it. Like I understand it, but thinking about it, I don't think I like it. I can be
Okay.
okay with. I don't
Okay.
think I
So
like the fact that anyone can be a force user. I think that it needs to be specific people.
the Jedi Order, when they would recruit younglings, it was based off of their midichlorian count. If they were, had a certain level of force sensitivity, then they would, be taught in the temple. The problem is when you have, so I don't have a problem with the fact that anyone can reach a certain amount of skill as a Jedi. The problem is when you see like Sabine and Rey. Sabine's not as bad because she actually did have formal Jedi training. But still,
Enough to have what she did though.
when you see them just pick it up and immediately are able to fight, use Jedi skills, it doesn't work. Especially Rey, who had literally zero Force training whatsoever and managed to win every single fight she was in, and she was able to come up with or like invent force powers that had never been seen before. All right.
Um,
Well, Wesley's having technical difficulties, so we're probably gonna have to wrap this up soon. Um, but yeah.
Eventually, I want to get back to the argument because just what little I did catch before I cut out, I have definitely have things to say about um your thoughts on that. But I'm sure I'll bring it up at a later date. We talked plenty of Star Wars here, so
Well, and we are gonna be getting into the sequel, so we're gonna be getting into Miss Mary Sue herself, Rey.
So, but with that, I think I am good if we want to uh our first episode of December of the holiday season and get on out of here.
Alright. Well, explorers, that's about all time we have for today.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Let us know what you thought in the comments down below, or you can DM us on Instagram at DownTheRabbitTrailYT.
Thanks for sticking all the way to the end, and be sure to join us next time on The Trailcast.